Is that service time manipulation? It is absolutely service time manipulation, and teams do it all the time because they are trying to take advantage of the system and do what they can to keep costs down as much as possible. Welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of Fair Territory. As always, a ton to talk about. We've got a team that seemingly can't get it going. We've got a hot team, and that's also in the same division, the AL East. And we've got some really standout performances from the weekend that I want to highlight as well, and talk about my column on the Nationals that appeared in The Athletic on Monday. But let's start with the team that seemingly can't get going, and I think you probably know who I'm talking about. The Boston Red Sox. Now, they had a significant loss with the injury to Alex Bregman, the quad strain that's going to keep him out probably months. And with that, they had the promotion of Marcelo Meyer, something fans have been clamoring for, though not under these circumstances. And the Red Sox, they're 2 under 500. They're 7 out in the division, 2.5 out in the wild card. And Alex Cora, their manager, has basically said, this is who we are right now. And he's right. The question is, how do they get better? Now, Meyer's up, and I don't expect him to set the world on fire, just as Christian Campbell, who did initially, has slowed down. Marcelo Meyer is a young player who is going to have his struggles. And I know Red Sox fans are calling for the promotion of Roman Anthony, perhaps lose Trevor Story. I don't know, a DFA Trevor Story, not happening, but we'll get to that in a second. And then you would put Rafaela in the infield and really go to a youth movement. One, it's too early for that. You can't give up on the season. Bregman is coming back. And two, a contending team or a team with aspirations of contending can simply have a majority of young players. It's not going to work that way. Not if you're trying to get into the playoffs. And that's what the Red Sox are trying to do. We're not even in June yet. Remember, at this point last season, the Astros still weren't hot. The Mets were still buried, and they came around and eventually had the seasons that really were quite memorable for both those clubs. So with Story, and here's a guy who is struggling offensively and defensively, a guy who had played only 69 games the previous 2 years, the Red Sox are not going to give up on him and DFA him immediately. Here's a guy who is making $22.5 million this year. He's owed $25 million next year, another $25 million the year after that, and then a $5 million buyout. Teams just don't cut players unless they have a really good reason when they're making that much money. So I don't expect the Red Sox to do anything along those lines. I do expect we'll see Roman Anthony at some point, but again, it's going to be a difficult balancing act for them. And really the symbol of their season right now, or the statistic that embodies their season, is Garrett Crochet. He is a brilliant pitcher. He's got a 2.04 ERA on the season, and yet they're only 6-6 in his starts. 6-6 with the most dominant pitcher, arguably, in the American League. Not good. The Red Sox continue to flounder, but I still expect that they're going to be a better team as the season goes on. Also in the AL East, we have finally a red-hot Tampa Bay Rays team. Now, here's a team that couldn't win at home initially, and now they've got a 6-game winning streak all at home. It's been hot at Steinbrenner Field, which is not a surprise in Tampa as we get closer to the summer. And the Rays are putting some things together here. This 6-game winning streak, 2 wins against Houston, 3 against Toronto, 1 against Minnesota. Those are good teams. And what you're talking about with the Rays is a team now that is over 500, 1 out in the wild card, and the second place team in the American League East. Their offense is still a question. Jonathan Aranda having an all-star type season. Brandon Lau finally getting it together. They're still waiting on Yandy Diaz. Their offense is going to be an issue. It always seems to be with the Rays. They do have Ha-Seong Kim coming back probably in mid-June, and that should help. Taylor Wall's brilliant defensive shortstop, not much of a hitter at all. What the Rays do best, as always, is pitching and defense. And their pitching in this latest stretch here has been absolutely outstanding. 4 runs allowed in their last 37 innings. Their rotation, even without Shane McClanahan, is pretty good. Rasmussen's been brilliant. Pepio's been good. Right down the line. Now, Bradley and Boz have their inconsistencies, but this is a good group, and Zach Littell is kind of a consistent, workman-like fifth guy. The bullpen, as well is really strong. It's Pete Fairbanks basically and a bunch of guys you've never heard of. But that's the Rays, right? They do this every year. And I do expect, as I've expected all year long, them to be not necessarily a threat to the Yankees for the division title, but a team that will be in the wild card mix. And that's where the Rays are right now. And I do like what they're doing. It's just been an intriguing team to me from the start. We'll be back after a quick word from our friends at Foul Territory.
Kratz, my pup was picky, not anymore with Spot and Tango Unkibble, and it is about 40% less expensive than frozen food. So we're saving in the wallet and we're making our pups happier.
Let's go apples to apples. I'm not cheap, but I don't want to waste my money on something that's good for my dog. This is perfect.
Yeah, they are very excited. Both Bella, Kratz's pup, and Penelope, my little pup, for Spot and Tango. You can get your pup excited too, and there's no more guessing how much to feed your dog either. Spot and Tango creates a custom plan based on your dog's age, weight, breed, and activity level. It's a nice little survey. So upgrade your pet's bowl with Spot and Tango Unkibble for a limited time. Go to spotandtango.com/foul. Use code FOUL to get 50% off your first order. That's spotandtango.com/foul, code foul for 50% off your first order. Spotandtango.com/foul, code foul.
All right, finally, in the first segment here, I'd like to highlight some really cool things that were going on this weekend. And let's start with the Cubs. Seiya Suzuki, and to a lesser extent, but he's still really good, Pete Crow Armstrong. Seiya Suzuki, this dude leads the majors in RBIs. He's got 49. Pete Crow Armstrong is second with 48. In his last 6 games, Suzuki is 12 for 24, 3 homers, 3 doubles, 10 RBIs. Here's a guy we don't talk much about. The Cubs have bigger names, I guess you could call them. Dansby Swanson's their biggest free agent signing, of course, in recent years. PCA now grabbing the spotlight. They've got other contributors as well. But Seiya Suzuki has been a really consistent offensive force for them. Also over the weekend, in case you missed it, the Tarik Skubal 2-hit shutout of the Guardians, a Maddox, a brilliant performance, 13 strikeouts, no walks, 94 pitches, and the last pitch I believe was 102. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. This guy is one of my favorite pitchers to watch. He's competitive, he's emotional, and oh yeah, he's really, really good. I expect Tarik Skubal to possibly start the All-Star game for the American League, and I just hope we keep seeing him perform at his peak because it's really exciting. And then over in Pittsburgh, where we generally don't hear a lot of good things, Oneil Cruz once again breaking StatCast. 122.9 miles per hour, this home run right here. 122.9. That breaks his previous record. It's the hardest hit ball since StatCast began tracking in 2015. Oneil Cruz is a really fascinating player. Not a great defender, wasn't great at shortstop, not great at center field, and he doesn't always connect, as we know, offensively. But when he does, my goodness, it's something to behold. So, the Red Sox, the Rays, all of these great performances, and plenty more to discuss. Stay with us. Sources confirm Fair Territory fits are available at the new look foulterritoryshop.com. We've got hoodies, t-shirts, hats, and more. Father's Day is around the corner, so maybe add in something for a player to be named later while you browse. Order now at foulterritoryshop.com and look like the fairest of them all. Time now for the Inside Dish, the part of the show where I talk about maybe a story I've written, maybe a trend in the game, maybe something else entirely. But today I am going to focus on a story that I published on Monday in The Athletic, and it's about the Nationals. And it's about a team that we don't normally associate with the dregs of baseball. You know, I'm talking about the Rockies, the Pirates, the Marlins, the A's. But yet, the Nationals belong in that conversation, and that's kind of the theme of the column. You see the headline right there. Nationals remain among MLB's bottom feeders despite lengthy rebuild. And actually, sometimes people will ask me, hey, where did you get this idea? And I got this idea talking to an executive from another team who pointed out to me that the Nationals are essentially spinning their wheels. And he said, hey, man, 6 straight losing seasons. They're losing 90 every year, if not more, and it's going nowhere. So I looked into it, and what this executive called it was a failed rebuild. I'm not going to go that far, and I didn't go that far in the column. But the Nationals, and I don't know that a lot of people know this, since they won the World Series in 2019, of course, that was a great, great run for them. But since then, they are third in the majors in losses behind the Rockies and the Pirates, and they're only one loss behind the Pirates. So, yes, they belong in this conversation as one of the worst teams. And I go into what has happened here, and it's, as always, not a simple answer. With the Nationals, a lot of people focus on their lack of spending, and that's fair. They were a top 10 payroll team for quite some time in the 2010s, and in the last 3 years, they've averaged being a bottom 10 payroll team. So, yes, they are not spending. The Lerner ownership operates the team rather curiously, and that's been the case even in the good years. They did some things that were kind of questionable, but worked out. And yet here they are now in a much different place. They are not spending. Okay, we know that. But it goes a lot deeper than that. And really, one of the lines on the column is good teams both spend and develop. And what I wrote was the Nationals do neither. And this is the real crux of the issue, at least in my opinion, because if you're not going to spend, and there are teams that don't spend in the game, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Tampa Bay, others. If you're not going to do that, if you're not going to spend, you better develop. And they have failed in player development since, I don't know, about 2013. They have failed in international scouting, amateur scouting. Soto was their last great international sign. That was in 2015. Since then, it's basically Luis Garcia Jr. and a whole bunch of nothing. In the amateur draft, and I highlighted this as well, this is really interesting. You go back to 2013. They have produced only 3 players who compiled 5 B WAR or more. That's 5 wins above replacement, according to baseballreference.com, or more. And those players all play for other teams. It's Nick Pivetta, Jesus Luzardo, and Eric Fetty. They all made their marks elsewhere. So the Nationals drafting has been horrible. And in recent years, they've done a little bit better. I know Keith Law of The Athletic thinks their 2024 draft was really good. And Dylan Cruz came in 2023 with the second pick of the draft. And they've got some good things happening in the system, as all teams do. But the Nationals are in this position because they have not drafted well. They have not developed well. They made one great trade, an amazing trade, the Soto-Josh Bell trade with the San Diego Padres. It brought back Mackenzie Gore, C.J. Abrams, James Wood, Robert Hassel III, who's now in the big leagues, and Jarlin Susana, a prospect who's currently on the injured list at AA, but a guy who throws extremely hard. Now, that was great. No doubt about it. An all-time return for, obviously, a great player who had 2.5 years of control. But the problem is, even with those players, the timeline is accelerating, at least in terms of service time. And what I mean by that is Mackenzie Gore, after this year, will have only 2 years remaining before he becomes a free agent. C.J. Abrams will have 3 years remaining. So Gore, who leads the major leagues in strikeouts, is essentially in the same spot right now that Juan Soto was in 2022. 2+ years remaining before becoming a free agent. Now, I don't expect the Nationals are going to trade Gore. They're not in that same kind of place. They're not going to offer him $440 million like they did with Soto and then decide, we've got to move him. I don't expect that scenario to happen. They're trying to build here. But at the same time, Mackenzie Gore, James Wood, and Dylan Cruz, all represented by Scott Boras, who generally does not like to sign players to extensions before they become free agents. He likes them to establish their values on the open market. There are exceptions, and there are always exceptions, but there aren't that many exceptions. And again, generally speaking, those guys are going to go free agent. That's just the way Boras operates. He's been pretty successful at it over the years. So you look at all this, and even if the Nationals start to play a little bit better, and they have of late, they've been 7-3 in their last 10. They're still 5 games under 500. They're still not in the thick of it at all in the National League playoff picture because, of course, their division is very strong and the league is very strong. But even if that all comes together, then they're going to face at some point fairly soon the potential losses of Gore and Abrams. Now, it's not tomorrow that that's going to happen. And if you had a better farm system, if you were spitting out players year after year, you wouldn't have to worry so much about potentially trading guys because you'd have others to replace them. Isn't that what Tampa Bay does? As their guys get closer to free agency, they just send them elsewhere, bring in other prospects, and continue that process as they do. It's not something that a lot of us love seeing, that constant churn, but it's how these teams kind of survive. The Nationals aren't doing that. Now, their president of baseball operations, Mike Rizzo, he has been their guy since 2009. He's the second longest tenured head of baseball operations in the game, behind only Brian Cashman. He's had a lot of success. The 2019 World Series, the 2010s in general, were a pretty successful time for the Nationals. He made a lot of changes with player development, international, and amateur scouting after the 2023 season. And maybe ownership is simply waiting for some of those things to kind of take hold and for the Nationals to just get into a better place. But so far, it's not happening. And at one point during this whole process, which started really in 2021, that's when their rebuild began. It's when they traded Max Scherzer and Trey Turner to the Dodgers. It's when they traded Kyle Schwarber, John Lester, a bunch of others. Shortly after that, I think it was the following year, Rizzo was quoted as saying, "We know how to do this. This is going to be a shorter reboot. It's not a rebuild." Well, as I end the column, the promise of a shorter reboot, that's gone. And time is no longer on the Nationals' side. We'll be back after a quick word from our friends at Foul Territory.
Todd Father and I are from Jersey, so we're used to, oh, I got a guy. But sometimes that just means when I'm looking for a car, I go to Car Gurus.
Yeah, and I think honestly the best part about this is communication, which we love here in Jersey where we're from. And this is a place where you can get a car. The price drops all the time and they let you know when your car is ready and when you can get it. The communication part is the best thing for me, Scott.
Agreed. In-depth vehicle reviews. Car Gurus will connect you with trusted dealerships when you're ready, ensuring a transparent and hassle-free buying process with over 4 million listings. They have more car listings than any other major online automotive marketplace in the U.S., so you can find the best deal. Buy or sell your next car today with Car Gurus at cargurus.com. Go to cargurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.com. cargurus.com.
Time now for Grillin Ken. Let's get to your questions. First question comes from Lucha Insider, who asks, should the Yankees trade for a bat or just wait on Stanton? Now, Lucha Insider, I'm not going to pick on you, but sometimes fans crack me up. The Yankees don't need to trade for a bat. They're second in the major leagues behind only the Cubs in runs per game. What the Yankees do need is a third baseman, and I'll get to that in a second. But Stanton, at some point, is going to return. We don't know exactly when yet. And then they're going to have some interesting questions with Ben Rice performing as well as he is in the DH spot. How do they make all the pieces fit? I don't know that it will be that much of a problem simply because Stanton is not going to play every day. But as far as the Yankees needing offense, they don't really need offense. What they do need, and this does play into the offensive portfolio of the New York Yankees, is a third baseman. And that's the area where they've really struggled the entire season. Oswaldo Cabrera got hurt, but wasn't performing particularly well. And now Oswald Peraza taking the position, but they are 29th overall, next to last in OPS at third base. So if there is an area the Yankees are going to address at the deadline, besides pitching, which is what teams always want to address, I expect it will be third base. And that doesn't relate to Stanton in any way. They're hoping that Stanton's going to come back. They're hoping he's going to come back strong. Again, the issue is third base. It's not DH where they're going to be overcrowded. So, Lucha Insider, don't worry. Things are going to be okay. All right, let's get to the next question now. And this one comes from Kyle Bellback, is disliking the new MLB jerseys. Kyle, I'm sorry you're disappointed. But you ask, after the Pirates lost a year of service time by promoting Skeens so early last year and him winning Rookie of the Year, are they looking to avoid the same fate with Bubba Chandler by continuing to delay his call-up? That's a good question, Kyle. And it does relate somewhat to Skeens, I would think, in the average fan's mind and even in my mind. Like, okay, it's the same kind of scenario. And what Skeens did, because he was called up in early May by winning Rookie of the Year, yes, he gained the full year of service time under the new CBA, and he will be gone a year earlier than he might have been otherwise. The motivator with Bubba Chandler, though, it seems to me, is more the Super 2 deadline and also where the Pirates are as far as their season is concerned. The Pirates obviously are going nowhere. They know that. So why should they call up Bubba Chandler before the Super 2 deadline, which is expected to be in early June? And at that point, after he gets through that, you're ensuring that he's going to be eligible for only 3 years of arbitration and not 4. Is that service time manipulation? It is absolutely service time manipulation, and teams do it all the time because they are trying to take advantage of the system and do what they can to keep costs down as much as possible. The CBA to some degree has reduced the manipulation, but with the Super 2 deadline, it hasn't happened, and as long as the system remains in place, I don't expect it to happen. So I expect that we're going to see Bubba Chandler sometime in mid-June. Should we see him now? Is he good enough to pitch in the major leagues? Well, put it this way. 7 starts at AAA last year, 1.83 ERA. 10 starts at AAA this year, 2.27 ERA. That's 17 starts at AAA, 17 starts in which he pretty much has dominated. I would say he's ready for the major leagues. All right, next question. Let's see. This one comes from Jorge Soler. Well, it's not really Jorge Soler, but it's some guy who is pretending to be Jorge Soler, and he asks, can the Giants keep it up and win the NL West? And your immediate reaction to that might be, no way. That was sort of my immediate reaction. But the Giants are one of the great surprises of this season. They're 31-23 right now as we speak on Monday. They're tied for second place behind the Dodgers with the Padres. 2 games back, just 2 games back of the Dodgers. And the Giants, as we have seen this year, they have been an intriguing team in a couple of different ways. They're only 11th in runs per game. They're below average offensively at first base, second base, and shortstop, though Adames eventually should change that. They're not a great offensive team. They're okay. Pitching-wise, though, they've been really good. Their bullpen statistically, whether you judge it by ERA or opponent's OPS, is the best in baseball right now. Their staff overall ranks 3rd in ERA behind only the Mets and the Royals. Mets, Royals, Giants. That's the ERA leaders in Major League Baseball. They've got the same run differential as the Phillies. So it's a much better Giants team. I kind of love their outfield with Ramos and Lee, and then, of course, Yastrzemski. They need to get some more offense out of their infield. Obviously, if they can get Justin Verlander going when he comes off the injured list, that would be a bonus. They've rejiggered their rotation now, put Birdsong and Harrison in. It's an interesting group, to say the least. Can they win the NL West? Because that, of course, was the question. I don't know that they can win it unless the Dodgers keep getting hurt, which, of course, is always a possibility. But they are in the playoff mix, and they are going to be a team that I would expect is active at the deadline, trying to do some things, and trying to stay at least in contention for a wild card. All right, last question. This one comes from Sports. I don't even know what the handle is here. Royals and Baltimore seem like a perfect match for a win-win trade. Royals need hitters and Orioles need pitchers. Do you see a deal? In theory, this is a good idea. Yes, the Royals are deep in starting pitching. They're really going 6 deep right now, except they've got 2 guys on the injured list. And the Orioles obviously have a ton of young bats. The question is, which pitcher do the Royals trade? Now, as I just mentioned, Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo, they're on the injured list right now. So suddenly the Royals' depth isn't as great as it might appear on paper. But they do have very strong starting pitching. Chris Bubich has been a revelation this year. He's probably going to be an all-star if this keeps up. And right down the line, as far as their rotation is concerned, they're pretty well set. The one guy I guess they would trade, perhaps, actually they wouldn't trade this guy, but he's the guy you would think about trading for if you're the Orioles, is Noah Cameron. He's a rookie. He's come up this year. 0.93 ERA in 3 starts. Now, it's only 3 starts, I know, but that's the kind of long-term play I would imagine the Orioles are looking for. And if you're the Royals, you're not going to trade Waka or Lugo or Reagans. They're the heart of what you have, the best pitchers on your team, veteran guys. So maybe the Orioles would want someone like Noah Cameron. Okay, what would they give up? The Royals need outfielders. And maybe Colton Cowser is a guy who's currently on the injured list with a fractured thumb. But again, I don't see the Royals necessarily doing that and compromising the depth that they do have on the pitching side. It's something you don't want to mess with. And as for the Orioles, sure, I would imagine they'd entertain this kind of trade. I don't think Kobe Mayo is going to be a guy that the Royals would necessarily be interested in because they're kind of set in the infield. And Mayo has some questions now that maybe he didn't have before. But it is an intriguing match until you start breaking it down. And for that reason, I don't quite see it happening. I want to thank everyone for their questions. We got some really good ones this week. I want to thank you for watching, for listening. You know where to find us: YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and we will be back Thursday, myself and Alana Rizzo, with our normal live show, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific. Have a great week, everyone.
Let's shout out the BetMGM First Bet $1,500 offer when you use the bonus code FOUL. Get that offer when you download the BetMGM Sportsbook app or at BetMGM.com. Sign up, enter that bonus code FOUL, and deposit at least $10 into your new account. Place your first wager and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. If the bet does lose, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.